Good morning. I want to talk about faces. I'm talking, of course, of human faces, yours and mine. Essentially, I want to talk about why some faces look better than others. We all know that some people are gifted with better looks than others. Some of us feel resentful. Some of us, no doubt, feel lucky. But the reality is that they are different. The interest is both in looking at what is different and perhaps why it might be different. And there is the additional third question of, is it possible to alter it? Some people have vast payments on surgery to improve their faces. Others are very content with them as they are. It was to throw light on this subject that a couple called Samuels and Elway, some 30 years ago, did some research on babies, in fact 6-month-old babies. Now, they wanted to see if these children had any preference for good or bad-looking faces. And they did this in an interesting way. They sat the child or the baby on her mother's lap and looked in front at a screen. And on the left-hand side of the screen, they had less than attractive faces, and on the right-hand side of the screen, they had more attractive faces. They simply measured the time that the baby looked at the screens and found that the baby spent much more time looking at the nice faces than they spent looking at the less attractive faces. Now, this is amazing, really, because these children were only 6 months old, and you wonder that they could even focus on a picture. But the evidence was quite clear, and later on they actually repeated it with 3-month-old babies and got similar results. I think we have to accept the reality that we are born with an appreciation of beauty. Quite what that beauty is, we will discuss. One of the interesting things is how a very small difference in the actual shape of the face will make really quite a substantial difference in your appreciation. Now here you can see two pictures. The one on the left is slightly different from the one on the right, but at no point is it more than 1 millimeter different. That's on the lifetime scale. Now that's a very small amount, and yet, as you can see from the face, the two profiles look quite different. The reality is that our minds are attuned to facial appearance, and especially the contours of the face and the profile. You will find you get a much better idea of someone's face in profile than you do from a facial head-on appearance. Anyway, we wish to do some research to try and establish what the differences were. We took an individual, which was actually featured in the picture B you see in front of you, and we made that vary by setting the chin back on the left-hand picture, and I think the lips forward on the right-hand picture. Now, interestingly, in the bottom left-hand picture, which is labelled E, we did not move the chin forward. We set the cheek line back. That makes it look as though the chin is forward and shows the importance of those cheekbones that we talked about earlier. In the last picture, we have set the whole of the lower jaw back. Now, all of these features were limited to less than 5 millimeters, very small changes. And yet the change in the appearance is quite obvious. We then took a sample of 105, I think it was, adults, and asked their opinion on which was the most beautiful face, and to rate the opinions of the faces. Now, the 74%, as you can see, took face B, and the percentages that took the others is interesting. You can see that people really did not like the protrusive lips of the person on the left. And even more, they did not like the flat cheeks, which is on the bottom left, number E. And that rated very low on people's priority. Now, that just shows how important good-looking cheekbones are in establishing appearance, or at least good appearance. What was really interesting was not just that the natural face that we had chosen in the first place looked better, but we then asked everybody to express their second preference. And you can see that when it came to the second judgment, the figures are not very far apart. The flat faces are still the least attractive, but all the other features are only a little bit more attractive. Now, what this research was designed to show was not just which types of face we like most, but it was designed to show what our general preferences are. And what you will find is, out of any group, nearly everybody will prefer one type of good-looking face. But if they're denied that choice, they will have quite widely differing preferences. So you need to alter the traditional statement that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, because in most instances, the average people around us are anything but perfect, and therefore we will judge them all quite differently. And I think this accounts for the belief that the judgment of appearance is very much an individual thing rather than a general appreciation. So the research ultimately showed we all agree about which faces are most beautiful, but we disagree about which faces are less than perfect. There are many lessons that we can learn by thinking more deeply into that.